चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते गौरचंद्राय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं दैवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम्। Hare Krishna. So today we'll be presenting a summary of the first chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Prabhuji,
Yes.
before we start, I request everyone who can please switch on their cameras. Yeah. Yes, Prabhuji, continue.
Yeah. Radha Madhavi, what time is it there now?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Pranam, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, it is 6:40.
Oh, you chanted your rounds or did I disturb your japa?
Prabhuji, I've chanted 6 rounds still in between.
Okay. Fine.
Prabhuji.
Okay. So the goal is originally Dina Sudama Prabhu was discussing with me and even Hare Krishna Prabhu that eventually we'll look at expanding this group and throw it open to everyone. And this class can be in Hindi. So it becomes like a morning class every Saturday. We take one chapter. That was one suggestion that came that will have to be discussed. I want Dina Sudama Prabhu and Hare Krishna Prabhu to please stay back on the call after this class just for 5 minutes. Something to be discussed. And Darup Dwarkadish Prabhu also. If we can, yeah. I hope that's okay by you guys.
Yes, Prabhu. I mean, I have a meeting at 10.
Just 5-7 minutes, a short discussion.
Okay.
Dina Sudama Prabhu, is it a working day for you, no? Or is it you'll have to? If you unmute, then I can hear you.
Voice not coming.
Okay. You can text me in case you can't or chat me. It's a very important chapter because well begun is half done. So Srila Prabhupada had mentioned, and many others have also highlighted Acharyas, that Prabhupada has put in all his transcendental ecstasies into the first canto, which practically was the only book that he had when he went abroad. He carried 3 volumes of the first canto, which was practically, as from the Prabhupada Lilamrit we see, that he felt he was ready now to preach in the Western world because he had Bhagavatam with him. So in this chapter, they pose the questions by the six questions by the sages of Naimisharanya to Suta Goswami. What is the ultimate good for humanity? And the answer is devotional service. What is the essence of all the scriptures that you have ascertained? And that is again devotional service. And then they ask, what is the purpose of Krishna's appearance, which is to basically attract the pure souls. And he asked about the Purusha avatars, which is Karanodakashaya, Garpodakashaya, and Shirodakashaya Vishnu. They have been described in the first canto, second chapter, first canto, first chapter, and first canto, third chapter in detail. Then the 5th question is they wanted to know about the Leela avatars of the Lord. Saha Ramena Keshava. What are the various pastimes that were performed? This is again described in the first chapter as well as the 3rd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. And the most critical question was asked, the 6th question, which is, whose shelter did religion take after the departure of Krishna to his own abode? Krishna Swadhama Upagate. And the answer is, of course, Srimad Bhagavatam, which is Purana Arka Adunodita, which is the son of Srimad Bhagavatam. So it'd be nice if all of you as preachers should have some idea of all these 6 questions and their answers. If you can memorize the shlokas, great. I, for one, don't know all the verses, but it's a good thing as leaders. And you don't need to remember all the verse numbers, but if you can make a note of it as to which verse is the question and which verse is the answer, that will help. While I'm having these classes, I'm also trying to coach you into how you can give classes and preach. So this is one important aspect. If you know this, it is a very good weapon when you speak. So the very first sloka, which Acharyas indicate, there is Sambandha Jnana. Janmadhyasya yatva Janmadhi Asyamad, meaning it's not just Janma, it is creation, sustenance, destruction, annihilation, everything. It's clearly mentioned that Krishna is a primeval Lord. Anadi Radhir Govinda, this was mentioned in Brahma Samhita. He is the absolute personality of Godhead, and Prabhupada very beautifully mentioned that if he is the absolute personality of Godhead, he cannot have any nomenclature except that of Krishna, because Krishna is all attractive. If he is absolute personality of Godhead, then he has to be all attractive in all aspects. So therefore, Krishna has to be his name. And then it is clarified further that he is Vasudeva, which means son of Devaki and Vasudeva. It is mentioned also that Vasudeva is the plenary portion of Krishna. Plenary means it's complete, as complete as Krishna, as good as Krishna. Hang on, before I mess it up, let me connect the charger. There you go. Okay. So we know that Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are the Chaturvyuha expansions, that they appear twice. We also know that often Acharyas say that it was Krishna never left Vrindavan and never leaves Vrindavan. It is Vasudeva who left and shifted to Dwarka, Mathura, etc. But in any case, we know he's a plenary portion, which means as good as Krishna himself. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, confirms that Srimad Bhagavatam is what? What? Pramanam Amalam. It is spotless, authoritative literature. Pramanam can be, by itself, it is a Pramanam. You don't need anything else as a Pramanam for Bhagavatam. You mention in Bhagavatam, you have to accept it. Of course, we all know that Mahaprabhu's life and pastimes were described in more than 50 pages in the introduction to first canto by Srila Prabhupada, clearly highlighting that the book Bhagavatam and the person Bhagavatam are non-different, and Mahaprabhu being Krishna himself and also a devotee in both senses is Bhagavatam itself. So, and Srimad Bhagavatam was compiled by Srila Vyasadeva in the maturity of his spiritual wisdom. How do we know it's a maturity of his spiritual wisdom? He has written so many other literatures in pursuance of the Vedic version, and Vedas themselves were compiled by him in writing, divided into 4 from the original one and then in writing. However, we know that later on he became gloomy and he was morose because he, as explained by Narada Muni and confirmed by him, that he had not sufficiently and completely described the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Therefore, he felt morose, and when he completed the Srimad Bhagavatam, despite having the entire Vedic wisdom at his disposal and being the literary incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he finally felt satisfied, thus confirming the fact that this is the topmost literature. So when he compiled that, he was happy. So when he compiled it, naturally, it was his spiritual wisdom had been matured by the words of Narada Muni as well. So after the Vedas, Puranas, Vedanta Sutras, etc., he was dissatisfied. Vedanta Sutra is considered the short form of the headlines of the Vedas. Upanishads are Vedanta, the conclusions of the Vedas. They're called like the titles or the headlines, Surkiya. And the summary of the Vedanta is presented in Vedanta Sutra, Janmadhyasya, Athado Brahma Jijnasa, and this one, Anavarti Shabdat, Tattu Samanvayat, Tarko Apratishtat. These are all aphorisms, short forms, but they describe the entire Vedanta. And Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Bhashyam Brahma Sutrana. So Narada Muni therefore asked him to write on the transcendental activities of Krishna. And the 10th canto is the completion, especially the Rasa Panchadhyaya, the 5 chapters on the Rasa dance. But Srila Prabhupada confirmed that to reach the very substance, one has to proceed through the categories. So you don't jump. And Krishna is both the creator and destroyer of the universe. So we have to be very careful in evaluating his activities. And Srila Prabhupada goes in detail to establish Krishna's position as the Supreme Person. Like satellites are thrown into orbit, into space by the scientists. All the universes with their innumerable stars and planets and varieties, they're all controlled by the intelligence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We should be clear about this. And therefore, the very creation, idam hi vishwam bhagavane vetaraha. The very creation is the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he knows every nook and cranny of the creation. He knows every aspect of his own creation. And therefore, it is mentioned in the Upanishads, Taittiriya Upanishads, quoted by Prabhupada often, and in the shloka as well. Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayanta visamvishanti. From whom everything emanates, from everything, in whom everything is maintained and sustained, and into which everything annihilates. That is the Supreme as Absolute Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the words Abhijna and Swarat, which are mentioned in the first shloka, they can apply only to Krishna. He is all cognizant and he is completely independent. These scientists or impersonalists who may claim to be God or as good as God cannot claim to be this, that they know everything, or that, for example, I'm speaking with you. I also have some notes in front of me. It's not like I remember everything. But Krishna says, Vedaham samadhitane vartamane charjuna. Everything, past, present, future, he knows. So that is a difference. We must understand. He is Abhijna, he is all cognizant. And his Swarat. I had to come at 8 o'clock. I told Hare Krishna Prabhu that I will come at 8:05. Finally, I came at 8:07. So I'm not Swarat. So we can see quite similarly all the material, impersonal scientists and everything. And Prabhupada confirms that whenever we neglect the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we are duly punished by the laws of nature. And therefore, at times, in extreme situation, the Lord himself comes. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. He himself comes to set the order straight. And therefore, it is mentioned that God is Asam Urdhva. There is nobody who can equal him or who can surpass him. Asam, Asama, it cannot be equal. Urdhva, he is Urdhva, it cannot be surpassed or equal. And unless one surrenders fully under the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he will be bewildered. Muhyam yat suryaha, it's already mentioned. So what do they do? Krishna, I can't know you. So I just surrender to you. Bhuyopi namo namaste. Arjuna also says, I can't, who are you? Hey Krishna, hey Adava, hey Saketi, I've called you all this, but who are you? You are I'm totally bewildered. So therefore, the knowledge of Krishna is possible only by surrender. That also up to Krishna. When he says Datame Buddhi Yogam Tab. So how does that happen? It happens by Bahunam Janmana Mante Janavanam Prapatete. Then somebody may come to the understanding that Vasudeva is everything and then surrender. And when one surrenders, then the knowledge is revealed. Because we don't know about Krishna because of our ignorance, avidya. And when all the various sinful reactions are duly removed by the Supreme Lord. When we surrender fully unto Him, He removes all the sinful reaction. And that way He liberates us. Sorry, I think I've been trying to play strong man too much. I'll start wearing some sweater or something. Started getting cold. What's the temperature in Gurugram?
Around 18, Prabhuji.
18 is night temperature, no?
Currently it's showing 15. Oh.
Oh, acha. Okay. Gurgaon is generally colder than Delhi. So, Srimad Bhagavatam is mentioned also in the Matsya Purana. How the Gayatri is invoked in the very first shloka, Satyam Param Dhimahi. Because Prabhupada mentions that Vyasadeva purposefully invokes the Gayatri mantra so that one is gradually purified and then understands the supreme position of Krishna, especially his transcendental pastimes. So it is therefore, that's one of the reasons when one gets Gayatri initiated, it is supposed to facilitate one's chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra even further, and therefore it will reveal more confidential aspects of the Supreme Lord. That is the purpose. And therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is Krishna himself and reveals his transcendental pastimes, it is in the first shloka itself it is mentioned, if one gifts the Srimad Bhagavatam on a full moon day, then one returns back to Godhead. That's the whole Bhadra Purnima drive that we have. And therefore, Prabhupada mentions that the serious student should do well to go through elaborate commentaries given by Sridhar Swami, Vallabhacharya, Jiva Goswami, etc., to develop a greater transcendental appreciation for the messages of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, and another important aspect Prabhupada touches in the very first shloka, and on the very first shloka is very important because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada gave a class in Dhaka for almost a month on just this. He says that Srila Prabhupada mentions that man without correct understanding of the Adirasa or the sex of the absolute personality of Godhead has given undue importance to the mundane inability of sex, which is a perverted reflection of what is found in the spiritual world. Adirasa is the original rasa that only Krishna can exchange with other living entities. So if the living entity has to exchange Adirasa in its form, it is purely for the pleasure of Krishna, which is dharma aviruddha bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshava. But what has happened instead, it's a supreme absolute, is impersonal. So there is no such thing as Adirasa in the spiritual world. There is an understanding. So therefore, they think that what we practice is what is the right thing. There is nothing wrong. It's a normal activity, biological activity. And they're stressed on it so much because of that they become sinfully implicated further. So it's a perfected reflection of the original fact. So therefore, because of impersonalism, people think God is not a person and we are all God. And therefore, whatever is there is here. So they practice this, thinking this to be the real thing, which it is not. So the Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, elevates the unbiased reader, Prabhupada mentions, to the highest perfectional stage of the Paramahamsa, that is transcendence above the three modes. Also, sakam karma, fruitive activities, jnana, dhyana, karma kanda, etc. Above all that, it elevates the serious practitioner and the reader, especially through unbiased reading. And the next shloka, which is more about abhideya, dharma projita kaitavo atra paramaramatsranam sutam vidyam vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapatrayon mulanam. Srimad Bhagavate Mahamunikrite Kimva Pararishwaraha Sadhya Kritya Varadudeta Kritibi Shushushvit Takshana. If one reads through Srimad Bhagavatam, one is immediately, as an irrevocable fact, the supreme absolute truth is established in the heart. This is the way Prabhupada defines it. So, absolute truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of everyone. Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu Shivadam. Shiva means that which is auspicious. So anything other than that has to be completely kicked out from Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, pro-jita kaitava, pra-ujjita kaitava dharma, cheating religion has been completely thrown out of Srimad Bhagavatam. And it is mentioned that it is therefore the highest truth. It gives up all materially motivated religions. That is kaitava dharma. Any religion that is materially motivated. And who can understand it? Paramanirmatsaranam satam. Satam is pure devotees of the Lord. Those who are pure at heart, practically like 100% free of envy. They are the ones who can really understand Srimad Bhagavatam. So therefore, as soon as one attentively and submissively, these are the words used by Prabhupada, attentively and submissively hears the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. So this culture of knowledge means, what is it? It is abhidaya. You're practicing something. And it therefore establishes the Supreme Lord in your heart. Generally, religion, we talk about dharma, dharma pro ujjita. Dharma contains the purusharthas, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, these four. But none of these are the real things, so to say. Generally, religion includes these four. But most people who don't practice religion practice animal life. And we know that ahara nidra bhaya maitunam cha samanya metat pashubir narana. So in the lower stages of life, one is focusing on survival of the fittest, survival of the fittest. So at that stage, people may take to religion, But if without religion, one can manage survival, then one doesn't take to religion. That's what happens. So therefore, Prabhupada mentioned that factories and cinema halls are getting completely packed, whereas temples and churches are empty. So the job of this group is to ensure that all those people populating the immense number of malls and Millennium City MNCs should not throng Sector 45 Radha Gopinath Temple. That is your service. Then Sudama is smiling because he's preaching in church, so he has to start. And so therefore it is mentioned that people practice dharma to get wealth, artha, or fame, or whatever, which is part of artha. And when that artha is available, then what do? They use it for kama, for the sense gratification. And when they're frustrated with everything, then they try salvation, which is moksha. So all these, Prabhupada says, all these are sense gratification. Even moksha. So one of the symptoms of bhakti, which we keep discussing, what is it? Moksha lagutakrit. It considers liberation as something very trivial. Lagutakrit. That is why mama janmani janmanishware bhavatat bhakti rahit pitve. Birth after birth, I want your devotion. What does that mean? It means I don't want to be liberated. I want to just practice devotion. So Srimad Bhagavatam is purely transcendental literature. Paramahamsa Samhita it is called. And therefore it is understood actually only by pure devotees of the Lord. What are they? Why are they pure devotees? Nirmatsaranam. They are transcendental to competitive sense gratification. In other words, neighbors envy, owner's pride. That is not there in them. So what happens is there is no competitive sense gratification. Just because you are gratifying your senses doesn't mean I try to satisfy my senses. That is called non-envy. And for all of you leaders here, what is non-enviousness? Who can say? What is really non-enviousness for all of you? Please raise your electronic hand and speak. Yes, Radharanga Maturi.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, when you are happy with other person's advancement, when he's advancing, you are happy with it.
Very good. It's an excellent point. So, what will you do to ensure that?
I may be a helping hand if that person ever requires my help. then
How?
I have to equip myself.
To what?
If
To do what?
he wants to advance in Krishna consciousness,
So what will you do?
and that person wants to go for Mangala, and
Yeah. So what will you do to him or her?
and if I can be of some help of
What is
commuting
it?
with that.
Okay.
You want an example?
I want the tattva, what you will be doing to them to help them.
Encourage that person.
So what is that activity?
Terminology or particular.
Okay, I'll park you for the moment. Darak Dwarkadish, probably you wanted to say something.
6 exchanges, Dadati Prati Ganati.
Okay. One sec, hold on. Prabhuji, I'm in the middle of the class. Yeah, our sector 45 class is going on. You can join online. Yeah, because it's every Saturday. I thought you knew. Yeah. Hare Krishna. That's your temple president. So, Darak Dwarkadish and Radharanaga Mataji said something, but many of my old students still don't remember. What is it, Dinu Sadama?
My handwriting option is not visible, so I can do like this.
I don't know who's speaking. Nobody raised the hand, so
Okay.
voice is coming.
Go ahead, Shailashni Mataji.
Yes. Shailavasni Mataji, tell me.
Yeah, I have to do like this.
Okay, go ahead. Tell me.
The same thing, I agree with the point. Radhanagar Mataji said, we should be happy with the progress of our period, and we should succeed them. This is one thing which I understand. I should also practice it.
Okay. Dina Sudama Prabhu, come back to you.
Yes, Prabhu. Definitely. I mean, seeing others progressing in bhakti is should be part of our motto, but also we should endeavor to accept everything which is favorable for our bhakti and bringing them to the platform so that they can start chanting and adapt.
What will you do for that? What will you do for that? It's been already mentioned innumerable times in your Saturday classes. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
So wherever our service is required, whatever that be, I mean, the lowest or the highest, we do it.
Okay, so what does all this mean? Put it in one word. Why do we do all this? What kind of... sorry?
Preach.
Yes. That's the point. Those who are non-envious alone can preach. Those who are violent will not preach. Those who are non-violent or free of envy, they will preach. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, so compassion for the jiva means you preach. So if you study Bhagavatam, like Mataji was saying, equip oneself. I have loving exchanges, which is again, Shravanam, Kirtanam together, study Bhagavatam together. Accept that which is favorable and that reject that which is unfavorable. Like Dinu Sudham Prabhu was saying. Again, that you will know, with the Vidhi you will know from the scriptures. But what do you do with all this to help others? If you genuinely want others' advancement and you're not envious of it, then what will you do? You will preach. You will preach by example to those who are junior to you or equal to you, or to the totally innocent. You will preach by precept also, and also by principles. You will preach through language. Those who are seniors, you will preach by your surrender, so that they become merciful. Preach by your behavior, etiquette. Not to educate them, but to attract their mercy. So you're not envious that they're advanced than you. You try to associate with them to take their, that is where the loving exchanges was talked about. So all this, fundamentally our movement, I chant Sanskrit mantras when there is Abhishek. Why do I chant Sanskrit mantras? What is the purpose?
It
We need to attract.
It attracts.
Preaching. Preaching. They shouldn't think that Iskcon people know only Hare Krishna, nothing else. But these mantras, eventually we know Hare Krishna mantra is everything. But we set an example by chanting these mantras, Pancharatrika Vidhi we practice. Although Bhagavad Vidhi and Pancharatrika Vidhi therefore should go together. That's the point. So everything we do should be preaching. Applying tilak should be preaching. Chanting the mantras properly, do achaman after bath, preaching. People should see how serious we are. Like Gurudev Bhaktivedanta mentions, we should keep praying. That is Krishna consciousness. That's again preaching. So that would mean we are completely free of envy. And not only are we free from material envy, but we go one step further. We also become well-wishers of everyone. Suhrit. We go beyond that. And what do? Not only do we ourselves remain free of competitive envy, we also strive to establish a competition-free society. A competition-free society, not where competition is available free, but competition is not there. Competition-free. Competition-free society, which would mean what? With God at the center. Not communism, but spiritual communism. Bhagavat communism. Krishna at the center and everybody else rallying around him. Everybody is equal in that sense. But Krishna at the center, not the state at the center. And therefore, Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, Upasana Kanda, these are all explained in the Vedas for connecting to various propensities of people to worship the Lord or to realize absolute truth. But Srimad Bhagavatam is superior to Jnana Kanda, Karma Kanda, Upasana Kanda. Upasana Kanda does include worship of Vishnu also, but it is primarily, it focuses a lot on just about everyone. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. It's a bit of demigod, there's a whole lot of demigod worship is also mentioned in Upasana Kanda. So we don't restrict ourselves to Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, Upasana Kanda, but go beyond that into pure bhakti, which is given by Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, it is superior because it promulgates Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva of the Vedanta Sutra. Prabhupada confirms in the second shloka. Achintya Bheda Bheda is completely confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra, and Bhagavatam promulgates that. And it frees us from the threefold miseries of life. Tapatrayon Mulanam. What are the threefold miseries? What are the threefold miseries?
Adi Devik, Adi Bhautik, Adi Atma.
You should be like this. You should be not thinking. You guys are all leaders. This is ABCD stuff for all of you. And it should, I'm not dictating to you. I'm saying this will be the expectations from the general public. Please remember, we are a preaching movement. What you know, you know. What you don't know, you don't know. You don't need to remember what Jiva Goswami has mentioned about each one of these. But you should at least know the basic principles in Prabhupada books. And therefore, this whole thing, freeing from the threefold miseries, it begins by surrender to the Supreme Person. It begins with the surrender of the devotee to the Supreme Person. How do you surrender and then do what? You surrender and then you serve. So service to the Lord is rendered in pure consciousness of one's spiritual identity. Which means that's the perfect, that's the topmost level of service. It happens at the level of bhava or something. But by service, one is freed immediately from material encumbrances. You can see for this 1.5 hours that we're going to be discussing Bhagavatam, I don't think any of us will be easily touched by material energy. What do you think? Unless it rings in the form of your mobile from some other thing. So in general, it is you're freed. Like it is mentioned that Uttama Shloka Vartaya Ahaniya. No, this one. Sorry. Uttana Sau Tasyate Yakshonita Uttama Shloka Vartaya. So by the rising and this setting of the sun, the birth of Ayur Haradivai Pumsam, every person's life is reduced by the rising and setting of the sun. Except whom? Except those who hear the transcendental topics of the Supreme Personality of God. Uttama Shloka Vartaya. So we not touch my material energy in that sense. So we surrender to the Supreme Lord because the Supreme Lord is the total body and the demigods are his parts. So we don't go to for Upasana Kanda or anything. And therefore, the proper method for receiving this transcendental knowledge is what? And this you please establish clearly in your heart. It is to hear this subject matter submissively and sincerely. Attentively, submissively, sincerely. This is the first qualification and the right method for receiving the transcendental knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam. So then one becomes qualified to hear Srimad Bhagavatam after many pious deeds, Prabhupada mentions. So the intelligent person with thoughtful discretion is assured by Vyasadeva, it's like a Shrutipala, that what will he do? He can realize the Supreme Lord is established in the heart. It's an irrevocable fact that the Supreme Personality of Godhead will be directly established in the Supreme Heart. How? In the heart of the sadhaka. How? By hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam without undergoing the various stages of the Vedic learning. Like yesterday, I was conducting this Bhakti Shastri class for our for Bhagavat Mahavidyalaya in Hindi, and one of our students from this group, Priyabandhu Hari Prabhu, he is also undergoing the Bhakti Shastri course. So I was reading some Vedic mantras as part of the lecture, and towards the end, he was kind of appreciating the fact that how you are chanting and chanting the mantras, and how can one develop this and all that. So I just said it's not required. Prabhupada said, don't look at their pronunciation, look at their renunciation. So we are supposed to develop knowledge and renunciation. That comes by becoming devotees. We just need to do one mantra clearly in general, the Hare Krishna mantra, and maximum the Panchatattva mantra and the Guru Pranam mantra. That's it. You don't need to know more Sanskrit. I know so many Prabhupada disciples who don't speak Sanskrit at all, hardly any shlokas, but they practically know Prabhupada's translation of shlokas of Gita by heart. So what do you say for that? So the first qualification is to receive this transcendental message is to hear sincerely, submissively, seriously, attentively. So we don't have to undergo different stages of Vedic learning. We can directly go to Srimad Bhagavatam. And it is bogus to think, Maunapa Prabhu highlights this point every time, bogus to think that you can only go through the small books of Prabhupada. It's good. It's a structured, organized learning. Therefore, we have Ashraya, Priya Ashraya, we teach Divya Gyan, Divya Jnanam. Then we say, we bring them up to say, perfect question, perfect answers, Hare Krishna challenge, or On the Way to Krishna, various other books, gradually to Sense of Self-Realization, and then to Bhagavad Gita. That is in terms of structured academic learning. But if somebody but we distribute Bhagavad Gita to people who maybe smoking, drinking, etc. on the road. Maybe people of other faiths also. So there is just really no rule that this is where you should start. If somebody has a faith and is starting somewhere, that's fine. Just one second. Hanuman Prabhu, I'm in the middle of a class. I'm teaching a class. After that, I'll call. Huh? Yeah. So I have reminded Radhapati Prabhu last night. I'm waiting for his response. Last night itself I reminded. Yeah, there is. I forgot the dates. What are the dates? I have forwarded the message to him. Anyway. How dare you mute me? If there is anything confidential, I would have muted myself. Anyway.
It was recording, bro, so that's why I muted. So.
I know. They will even know the room number and the date of the booking. So, but good answer. I don't know if that was the reason, but good answer. Yeah, so it's important that simply by receiving this message, we can be elevated and lifted to the topmost stage of Paramahamsa. And so therefore, this is the process of Sambandha and Abhidaya. Now we come to the Prayojana of studying Bhagavatam. That is, actually second verse talks partly about Abhidaya and partly about Prayojana. Third verse is completely about Prayojana. And what is that? Nigamakalpataror Galitam Phalam Shukamakad Amrita Drabya Samyitam Pipada Bhagavatam Rasamalem Muraho Rasiko Bhuvi Bhavukaha. So Bhavukaha means those who are expert and thoughtful. And Rasika means they have complete knowledge of all the mellows, rasas of the Supreme Lord. So that is very, very important. And Pipada Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam. Alayam means almost liberated or in liberated condition. That's what the Acharya is saying. Nigama Kalpataror Galitam Phalam is a mature fruit of Vedic knowledge. The desire tree is Vedic knowledge. Kalpataru, Nigama Kalpataru. Nigama is Vedas, Kalpataru is desire tree. These are fulfilling trees. Why? Vedas can fulfill all kinds of aspirations of devotees or the readers. And what is that? Galitam Phalam. It is the ripened fruit. What is recommended, therefore, is patient and submissive hearing. Prabhupada again mentions this point. Patient and submissive. Earlier he mentioned seriously, submissively and sincerely. That's the first qualification. Then he says patient and submissive hearing is essential. Definitely with respect and attention. So just see so many words: patient, submissive, sincere, serious, respect, attention. This way one should receive the messages of Srimad Bhagavatam. And the Vedas contain, therefore, everything that is required to keep the body and soul together. There are also specific directions for spiritual realization. So then you have regulated knowledge, which means gradually promoting the living entity to the spiritual platform. And the highest spiritual realization, therefore, is the knowledge that the personality of Godhead or the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the reservoir of all rasas, Akila Rasamrita Murti, Rasika Shekara. So Rasika Bhuvi Bhavuka, they relish all these rasas because they all come from Krishna. And the taste that is derived from sense perceptions is, and that is relished by all jivas is rasa. It can be mundane or is transcendental. Then Prabhupada talks about the 7 principal rasas, 7 secondary rasas and the 5 principal rasas. There are 12 rasas that are mentioned. Raudra, Adbhuta, Shringara, Hasya, Veera, Daya, Dasya, Sakya, Bhayanaka, Vibhatsa, Shanta, Vatsalya. They're all mentioned. So it is, rasa is essentially a concept that is mentioned in detail in Natya Shastra by Bharata Muni also. So you will see that in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Chaitanya Charitamrita also. Prabhupada quotes with relevance to these along the Acharyas. From Bharata Muni's mention, especially Rupa Goswami also mentions. And the sum total of all rasas is affection, sneha or pranaya or love. And Prabhupada mentions beautifully that exchange of rasa is possible only between entities of the same species. Although it is getting worse in Kali Yuga, the bestiality is also being practiced, humans uniting with animals. So all those things are happening, crossbreeding, and humans engaging in bestiality. It's all gross, demoniac nature. But in general, the jiva is happy only if he exchanges the rasa with externally. He is happy in exchanging rasa with the same species, but over and above that, exchange of rasa is possible only really with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Each jiva has a unique rasa of the Supreme Person, and that exchange can happen. And this can happen, exchange can happen freely in an unfettered manner only at a liberated stage of material existence. What happens is at liberated stage. In material existence, what happens is the rasa that is exchanged is a perverted form of what is originally exchanged at the liberated state. So it is vikruta form. And therefore, very learned scholars, they desire to relish this rasa in the pure spiritual form. Rasika bhuvi bhavukaha. And unless we taste rasa, we'll get stuck at the level of nirvana, just one liberation. So Prabhupada mentioned that Shukadev Goswami is mentioned as Shuka is parrot, not because he's just repeating, but he is giving it without any adulteration. And it's mentioned how the ripened fruit is exchanged from one branch to another through disciplic succession. So it doesn't break and fall down. From the top, the knowledge is coming, the fruit is coming, it will fall down and break. But if it is handed through various branches, which is the disciplic succession, then it is received as it is. Shuka Mukhat, it indicates that rasa is sweeter coming out of the mouth of Shukadev Goswami, like a parrot pecking a fruit makes it sweeter. Quite similarly, Shuka is parrot, Radharani is parrot, they say. And by his narrating the Bhagavatam, it has become even sweeter. Shuka Mukhad Amrita Drava Samyuta. Alayam, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur gives something very out of the ordinary. Rasa is not in the tree. Rasa is not in the Vedas. Where is the rasa? It is coming from the mouth of Shuka, where it was put by his father out of affection with Vyasadeva. So the rasa is coming essentially out of the mouth of Shukadev. And therefore, alayam, another meaning of alayam is to embrace. Bhuvi means Vrajabhumi. And Bhavuka and Rasika are the gopis who drink the transcendental sweetness of the Supreme Lord's transcendental form to the extent that they feel like embracing him. That is why it is Rasam Alayam. This is of course slightly Rasika interpretation of Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, just to give you a little flavor of what we don't have. And any sincere listener, this is the other word. So there is serious, sincere, patient, attentive, submissive. So many words. That's how we should hear Srimad Bhagavatam. And such a person can relish Srimad Bhagavatam. So therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam is presented in such a way, Prabhupada mentioned that a serious and sincere student or a person can at once enjoy the ripened fruit of Vedic knowledge simply by drinking the nectarian juice through the mouth of Shuka or his bona fide disciplic succession or representative. So the first three verses fundamentally represent some kind of a prelude to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now it really begins after that. The introduction starts with how the devotees and sages are mentioned. One day in the forest of Naimisharanya, it is mentioned. Naimishe Nimisha Kshetre. So one second, I'll take a call from His Grace Gurujan Prabhu. You can stop the record. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my obeisance, Maharaj. All goes to Srila Prabhupada and Your Holiness. You just have to stop recording. Why do you mute me? Rasika just called. His Grace Gurujan Prabhu, my Shiksha Guru. So, so what do? These devotees and these rishis, they offer all kinds of sacrifices for the pleasure of Vishnu, Yajna by Vishnu. And then they are also attracted always to the service of the Lord. One is they do everything for the welfare of everyone and for the pleasure of Vishnu. Now they also are always attracted to the service of the Lord. They're anxious for the good of people in general. And therefore they're anxious to perform those activities which will bring about peace. When you say Om Shanti, 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 what? It's not for this, oh, let me be peaceful, let me be peaceful. It's for the environment, it's for everyone else. Right? Like Srila Prahlad Maharaj mentioned, Swastistu Vishwasya Khala Prasidita. Let all four directions be inundated with peace and happiness. Let everybody be happy. Which is Sarve Sukhina Bhavantu. And therefore, Prabhupada mentions in the purport about Yathatarul Mula Nisechanena. Detached branches, they will become dry because the water will not reach them. So therefore, only those attached from the Lord, they are satisfied. Everybody else is not satisfied. Therefore, others are, whoever is connected to the Lord as a part and parcel, he is nourished. He is nourished. Those who are not, who are actually parts and parcels, but are detached, they are not nourished. So the more we are in touch with the tree, and by the tree, the more we are connected to the branches, which is the disciple-like succession, we'll feel more nourished. Watering the root is in the form of Shravanam Kirtan, but it should be done in disciple-like successions. And therefore, to awaken the modern materialistic leaders baffled by atheistic leadership, congregation chanting of the holy names is a prescribed method of waking up, Prabhupada mentions. The best way to wake up people is the congregation chanting of the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Then in the 5th verse, Prabhupada talks about how morning is the best time for holding any spiritual activity like we're doing right now. Bhagavatam classes across the world by Prabhupada's direction. So then somebody is on the Vyasasana, and whoever is on the Vyasasana should present a viewpoint exactly like Vyasadeva. Therefore, all the preceptors or gurus are representatives of Vyasadeva, especially the Goswamis. They restrain the senses, they stick to the path made by the Acharyas, Mahajanavana Gatasabanta, and they present the unbroken messages without their own mundane interpretation. They're not capriciously delivered, Prabhupada says, not whimsically delivered. They're delivered as per Parampara version. And all the bona fide representatives of Srila Vyasadeva in the chain of disciplic succession, they have to be understood as Goswamis. It's mentioned by Srila Prabhupada. So therefore, again Prabhupada says, by submissive oral reception from the right sources, this transcendental subject matter should be learned. So it should be attentive, submissive, sincere, patient, and it should be from the right source. So Shaunak Rishi here, he is the leader of the rishis of Naimisharanya. He is a Jijnasu along with the other rishis, one of the 4 types of people who surrender to Krishna. So Shaunak Rishi is Shaunak Rishi and others, they are addressing Suta Goswami, who is a son of Romaharshana Suta, to whom all the Puranas were vested by Vyasadeva. His son, Ugrashrava Suta, with great respect, he was given an elevated seat by Shaunakadi rishis. And therefore it is mentioned here, one must submit or present questions to the speaker in order to elicit the clear meaning, but not in a challenging spirit. I think I should mention this every time class is over. Therefore, it is also mentioned that one must be submitting these questions with great regard for the subject matter also. It should not be like you want to ask a question for asking's sake or to show off or something that is completely unrelated. Srila Radhavan Goswami Guru Maharaj never answers a question not connected to the topic. He's saying Vishay se sambandhit nahi hai. Ab baad mein puchiye. Or he won't even say that. He just say not connected. So in the 6th verse, Goswamis or bona fide representatives of Srila Vyasadeva, their qualifications are mentioned. They must be freed from all kind of vices, all kind of anarthas, all kind of, especially sinful propensities. And they must be especially free of the 4 vices that we talk about, which is gambling, illicit sex, intoxication, and meat eating. And before he sits on the Vyasasana, he must be free of all this, and he should be of spotless character. Or he should be empowered by the authorities to speak. It is not like I want to give lecture, therefore I give lecture. We should never come to a situation where we call up people and say, will you please invite me for a class? That's a death knell of our Krishna consciousness. Please catch me doing it also. Feel free to correct me in case I ever insist on my giving a class. It'll be good for me if I do that. But one of my friends who was formerly involved in management in Gurgaon long back, he asked His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Guru Maharaj this question, that when I give lectures, I get a lot of respect. So what do I do? So Guru Maharaj told him, just keep giving class, it will go away. But the solution is Haristane Aparate Tare Harinam. It comes from the solution is to continue with the process of devotion service. There should be course corrections, constant seeking feedback, etc. But one should never give up service. It's not a government office to resign from your services. But if authority gives you service and authority takes away service, you should be happy with both. Then it is also mentioned that Representative Vyasadeva or Shukdev Goswami must be well versed in all the Itihasas, Puranas, Shad Darshanas, etc. But most important for one's progressive spiritual life is to be actively engaged in Shravanam Kirtanam. It applies to the speaker as well as the listener. So only one who has properly grasped this subject or transcended knowledge from the right source by submissive hearing can properly explain it. When I was able to deliver my first lecture in Radha Pasadi temple in 2010, I think, Bhagavatam class. I used to give Gita classes before. I sought permission and blessings from His Grace Jitamitra Prabhu, one of my mentors. His Grace Jitamitra Prabhu said, "Jo sunta hai, wo bol sakta hai. Aap sunte ho, isliye aap bologe." This was his blessing. So we should hear. And in the next verse, which is the 7th verse, Prabhupada mentions that Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentary on the Brahma Sutra. Sutta Goswami is aware of knowledge, Vedic knowledge coming from Vyasadeva and other masters, spiritual masters. Vedavyasa is the author of Vedanta Sutra, so naturally what he writes as Srimad Bhagavatam will also be theistic, because Vedanta Sutra is theistic. People convert it into impersonalism. So there are, in these 6 darshanas, there is Jaimini, Patanjali, Kanada, Ashtavakra, Kapila, Gautama. They practically don't even talk about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the cause of all causes, ultimate cause of all causes. But the Vedanta Sutra is completely theistic, the Vyasadeva. And therefore, it is mentioned that one can sit on the Vyasasana only once one is fully conversant with all the subject matters. Now, it's a big direction for us, but it's ours, the preaching movement. We'll have to keep trying to do it. Prabhupada used to listen to his disciples also. And Prabhupada said, present my own word, my purport in your own words. So that's our qualification, like Shukadeva Goswami has talked about. And in this verse, Vyasadeva is designated as Bhagavan Badarayanaha, because he's an authorized Shaktivesh avatar of the Lord. If we don't know all these other systems of philosophy, we cannot fully defend Srimad Bhagavatam and the theistic philosophy of the Supreme. So that is important. At least some working knowledge will be useful, not mandatory, but will be helpful. Bhruya snigdhasya shishyasya guror gukhyam apyuta is mentioned in the next verse, that because you're submissive, your spiritual masters have endowed you with all favors bestowed upon a gentle disciple. This we should understand, therefore. You should become gentle disciples. Bhruya snigdhasya shishyasya. Should become snigdha shishyasya. Therefore, Guravo Gukhyam Apyuta. Therefore, the spiritual master will reveal the confidential truths. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Yasya Prasadat Bhagavat Prasado is therefore drawn into attention here. Therefore, a disciple must be very, very obedient and submissive to the bona fide spiritual master. Then only can he understand this knowledge. And the sages of Naimisharanya, they were completely confident that Suta Goswami was bona fide. So they were very anxious to hear from him. And we should always be anxious to hear from those who are bona fide sadhus. Not that we go here and there and do spiritual shopping. It should be received in authorized disciplic succession. Therefore, the sages are asking the question that you have heard submissively from them and they are pleased with you from the Guru Parampara. So please tell us that all that you have scientifically learned from them, whatever you've learned from them, please tell us. So the first question by the sages is in the 9th verse, which comes next. Tatra tatranjasa ayushman bhavata yat vinishatam pumsam ekantata shreyas tanna samsitum arhasi. So we are blessing him. Please be blessed by many years. And please explain to us in an easily understandable way what you have ascertained to be the absolute and ultimate goal for people in general. I have muted my video, stopped my video because somebody is coming here to clean the office. And so Bhagavad Gita recommends Acharyopasana, which is worship of the Acharya. Acharyas, therefore, they are always absorbed in the thought of the spiritual well-being of the general public. They want the because they're free of envy. That's the point. They're free of envy, so they want everybody to progress. They should be. They're worried about the well-being of living entities. Who is Sonu? Anybody knows who's Sonu? Just log in.
Can't say, bro.
Huh?
Can't say. He left.
In Kali Yuga, people are generally very degraded and they're very condemned in all respects. So, therefore, it is important to summarize and give the ultimate essence of the revealed scriptures, which is meant for the absolute good for everyone. For everyone. Ekantata Shreyas. Pumsam Ekantata Shreyas, the ultimate good. So therefore, and then there is a brief explanation of the degradation of Kali Yuga. Prayana Alpayasha Sabya Kalavasmin Yugejana Mandas Sumandamage Mandabhagya Patrita. People have very short lives, they're quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky. They're upadrutaha. Upadruta means always disturbed. And Prabhupada mentioned beautifully, they are alpayusha. They are not alpayusha because there is no food. They are alpayusha because of the irregular habits. So Prabhupada beautifully says, this is for all of us sadhakas, by keeping regular habits and simple food, any man can maintain good health. Regular habits and simple food. Prabhupada mentioned that overeating, over sense gratification, over dependence on another's mercy. You know, talking about Krishna and Guru. Artificial standards of living, all these, they shorten the life of human beings. People are lazy both materially and also for self-realization. And human life is Brahma Jijnasa, meant for self-realization. What is self-realization? Who am I? What is the world? What is the supreme truth? This we have to understand. That is self-realization. And it's mentioned that human life is meant for self-realization. And this is the means by which the jiva can end all the miseries of the hard struggle for existence, the material existence, and go back to Godhead. So this is like a junction, like we say. This is the way to go back. But what happens is, because our system of education is so bad that there is no desire for self-realization. And even if they do, they become victims of the misguided teachers. They give them all weird stuff. So it's mentioned that men are victims of political creeds and parties. Many things, sense gratificatory diversions are given. I will list a few. Why don't you all list one? What are some of the sense gratificatory diversions that we have in life? Please say one by one. Let's see if it's all covered.
Prabhuji, watching sports. I mean, that's one thing that I haven't been able to leave
Okay.
after joining, coming into devotion. So
Okay. Yeah, I remember in 2010, I think 2010 or 11, there was a World Cup in cricket. I think India had made the final or something. India won it also. I don't know which year. 2011 or 10 or something. And so I couldn't get through one temple. I was calling at that point. One of the devotees of Gurgaon. I was preaching in Gurgaon then. He now is now a part of the Badshahpur temple services. Grasta. So I happened to call him and he never picked up for quite a long time. And I came to know that he was watching a cricket match, that final. I was getting desperate because Mahavishnu Maharaj was coming.
yeah, I mean, I don't want watch a lot, but sometimes yes, I do.
No, I mean, you are very honest. I don't want you to feel defensive. You're very honest and work on it. Keep following principles of sadhana bhakti and you just draw the longer line so the shorter line will gradually disappear. So we should keep regular habits. That is why. So sports is one. What else? What are the distractions do we have?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, visiting the market very often without any work.
Shopping.
Just go for window shopping.
Good.
That's very
Window
distracting.
shopping. Good. And you are in a call with Millennium City people. Yes, Shailavasi Matavi.
Sometimes, like when you are keep hearing or reading, so sometimes I watch light movies.
Cinema. Light movies meaning? Movies about tube light and bulb.
No. Light means not thriller, simple light, simplicity wala type. So after that, after watching movie, then I feel थोड़ा और lecture सुन लेते हैं, थोड़ा reading कर लेते हैं, तो उसके बाद और अच्छी साधना करती हूँ.
नाम के बल पर पाप करना.
मतलब sometimes.
What else? What other distractions? Not just devotees in general.
WhatsApp?
Yeah, technology, the big distraction. His Grace Mohanabha Prabhu says, the more you use technology, the farther you are from Srila Prabhupada's purpose. Because he didn't mean Veda ways. Okay, other than that, there's mundane libraries, clubs, gambling, smoking, drinking, cheating, many things Prabhupada mentions. So, unscrupulous men, without any understanding of scriptures, they manufacture religious faith, which is even worse. And, birds of the same feather flock together, so it attracts sense gratifiers. And because people commit sinful activities under the name of religion, Nasti buddhirayuktasya nachayuktasya bhavana nacha bhavate shanti ashantasya kutas sukham. Therefore, they are not peaceful. There is no proper maintenance of brahmachari ashram. There is no rules and regulations in grihastha ashram. Therefore, vanaprasthis and sannyasis coming out of these two ashrams, they are easily deviated from the path. So please pray that they are not. In Kali Yuga, the whole atmosphere is surcharged with faithlessness, Prabhupada says. There is no interest in spiritual values. It's practically lamenting, Prabhupada. There's no interest in spiritual values. Material sense gratification is the standard of civilization. I remember when the first time I started chanting, sometime in December 2000, when I started actively chanting. We had gone to an annual get-together from my company to Goa, of all the places. So while I was on the train, I was sitting and chanting. So my boss asked me a question. What is this? I said, I'm chanting. He asked me a question that, what do you get out of this? So that's the understanding. If you do something, you have to get something. So somehow the other Krishna inspired me to give an answer. I told him at that time that you don't need to get anything out of it to do it. I'm chanting because I want to chant or something like that. Now I realize spiritually it can be justified at the same point. Result of good chanting is more chanting. That is what we want. So there are complex arrangements of nations, communities, and yet Prabhupada said there is continuous Cold War and hot war. This happened in 1961-62 when he wrote this book. At that time the Cold War was at a peak. Russia sends Yuri Gagarin into space. So therefore America sends Neil Armstrong, Edwin Aldrin, and Michael Collins to the moon, so-called moon. This is the way, the space war. So by raising the standards of spirituality, one can really correct the imbalance in values, which is Iskcon's first principle. But because of the extremely distorted values of human society, it's becoming very difficult for us to raise the spiritual standards of people in general. You will experience it now. Going out on Bhagavad Gita marathon, distributing books is so difficult. They'll so shamelessly say, "Hamare paas hai." May not even have it. Aur mujhe malum hai, ya nahi chahiye. It's very sad. So therefore, the sages are very anxious to disentangle all fallen souls, and therefore they seek the shelter and the remedy from Sutta Goswami. The remedy, which is the next shloka, that Bhurini Bhuri Karmani Stotavyan Vibhagasana Athas Sadotra Yat Saram Samudritya Manishaya Ruhi Badraya Bhutanam Yenatma Suprasidati. Please select the essence of all the scriptures. You know everything. Please tell us, for all the living beings, give us all those instructions so that their hearts can be satisfied. Yenatma Suprasidati. So we'll conclude on that note. We will not complete the chapter today because there is more. There is another 10 shlokas. So we'll complete it in the next class. I don't need to just rush through. We are in no hurry. But we have presented almost nearly half of this chapter. We'll complete the remaining half. This first chapter is very, very important. Next few chapters can go a little easy. The first chapter is a lot of philosophy. Questions, comments? Yes, Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I mean, this question someone asked me in a class. I don't even remember the answer that I gave. Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest scripture on pure devotion, and Radharani is the epitome of bhakti. But Radharani's name is nowhere mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. So why is that so? I mean, I don't even remember the answer that I gave, but maybe you can throw some light.
Okay, Dwarkadish, with an all-knowing smile, please answer.
Prabhuji, as I have heard, So Shukdev Goswami is the parrot of Srimati Radharani. So if he speaks the name of Radharani, then he will go in trance and there will be no time for speaking Srimad Bhagavatam.
But Srimad Bhagavatam mentions Srimati Radharani indirectly. Anaya Radhito Nunam Bhagavan Haririshwaraha. One gopi who attracted Krishna so much, pleased Krishna so much that he took her separately. It's mentioned in the 10th canto. Anaya Radhito Nunam. So that Aradhito, Anaya Radhito is Radharani. That is the mention. Acharya has confirmed this. So Radharani's name comes in an indirect way. If it's directly mentioned, it will be difficult for Shukdev Goswami to complete Bhagavatam narration. And Parishit Maharaj doesn't have that kind of time. That is why he's even saying that you already heard Ramayana many times, don't. So I will explain it in short. Yeah?
Okay,
Is that
bro.
fine?
Yeah.
Who else has a question or comment?
Yes, Prabhuji.
What is Prabhuji? That was the question.
Prabhuji, Vedanta Sutra, you mentioned these are highlights. And
No, it is the Vedanta, which is the headlines of the Vedas, is mentioned as aphorisms, as sutras.
So Vedanta and Vedanta Sutra is the same thing. There is
No,
no
Vedanta is the entire gamut of Upanishads, which are the conclusions. Vedanta means the conclusions of the Vedas.
Okay. Vedanta is very big, but Vedanta Sutra is small.
Sutra is in sutra form. The Upanishads are the title or the headlines of the Vedas, or the conclusions of the Vedas. And the headlines of the Upanishads is the Vedanta Sutra.
Okay. Thank
you. Yes, a question or comment?
Hare Krishna.
Yes. I've seen Radhanaga Mataji's electronic hand. I didn't see your raised hand, but I'm taking it. Your voice came first.
Yeah, because my hand is often visible.
Why they don't allow? Why it doesn't allow?
Maybe I have to talk to IT to maybe there might be.
Your company doesn't believe in two-way communication. Go ahead.
Yeah, Prabhuji, we spoke about rasa, different types of dasya, satha, vatsalya, prema rasa. So, how to understand the rasa? Let's say if one is doing service and having respect of God. So, will it come in dasya bhav?
We're talking about a very high elevated position. The Kumaras who reached Vaikuntha and were transformed in their heart by the aroma coming from the tulsi leaves carried by the breeze of Vaikuntha, they were situated in Dasya. Look at that level. Dasya, just because somebody does some service, doesn't mean he's in Dasya. See, Dasya rasa is included in the other 4 rasas. And so Shanta rasa is included in all the 5 rasas. There is a bit of Shanta. Dasyam is included in the above 3. Vatsalya is included in the above 2. Sakyam is located in the above 3. Then Vatsalya in the above 2. Then Madhurya is the repository of all the rasas towards Krishna. So Dasyam is there everywhere. However, when you say Dasya rasa, you talk about a very elevated stage where you want to serve. We don't want to serve our senses, our extended senses. We want to serve Krishna completely at a consciousness level. Yes, Radhanaga Mataji.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, just want a little repetition when you said that when Shukadev Goswami repeated everything, what he heard from Vyasadeva, it makes Srimad Bhagavatam very sweet. So after that, what did you say?
I just said that like a parrot pecks a fruit, it becomes sweeter. That's what is mentioned.
About the gopis, you said.
Gopis, that is, I knew. Radhanaga. So, what is mentioned is that the gopis, they're so inspired by the beautiful form of the Lord and hearing his glories that they feel like embracing him. Rasam alayam. Rasam means rasika or the gopis. They relish the form of the Lord so much. Alayam, the word for alayam is embracing. So they want to practically embrace his form. Or the queens of Dwaraka, because of Maryada, when the Lord came back to Dwaraka, they embraced him within their heart, minds, and eyes. So, Rasam alayam. Krishna is the source of all rasas, and the gopis who have that mood would seek to even embrace him.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's conclude and we will continue with the first chapter. Just remind me by message, Hare Krishna Prabhu, that the day before the class, that from where I have to start. I think verse number 11 is where I have to start.
Okay, bro.
Okay, the others could exit if you don't mind. I want to request, thank you Radha Sham Prabhu and Rati Manjari Mataji and Radha Madhavi Mataji and Radha Naga Mataji for joining this Gurgaon group. Others are our Gurgaon locals. So others may also exit except for Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dwarak Dwarkadash Prabhu and Dina Sudama Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Our evening classes will continue.
Yes. If you want, they will continue. I am available to come.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Who's that? Radhika Bhava Matri, huh?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Good. I never had your darshan. Good. She manifested. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Acha, you are there in that group, na?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So we'll plan that on 23rd properly. 12:30 we are meeting today online.
Okay. Yes.
Half an hour we'll discuss.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank
so
you,
much.
Radhaman Shambhu. Yeah. So basically on 23rd I'm planning to have a short Vyasa Puja celebration of Srila Radhanath Swami Maharaj.